Welcome to Hidden Reality. I want you to think about something absolutely unbelievable. Right now, as you're sitting there watching this, your DNA is 60% identical to a banana's. No, I'm not kidding. This simple, completely shocking fact proves that if you rewind the clock far enough, you, me, and that piece of fruit share the exact same ancestor. But how did that story actually begin?
That brings us to the ultimate mystery of our existence. How did completely dead, non-living matter, ordinary stones, freezing water, and lifeless dirt transform into a breathing, replicating, living organism? There was no sudden magic trick. Instead, it was an incredibly slow, mind-bending chain of cosmic coincidences. If we travel back roughly 3.7 billion years, we hit the root of this massive mystery. We call it LUCA, the last universal common ancestor. Now, LUCA wasn't the absolute first living thing, but it is the common ancestor of literally every living organism on Earth today. Every plant, every animal, and every single bacteria evolved from this one single-celled microbe. But honestly, that just deepens the mystery. How did LUCA originally come to life?
Well, to cross that impossible threshold from dead chemicals into a living being, matter had to overcome 4 massive hurdles. It needed complexity, a metabolism to process energy, a physical boundary to protect itself, and finally, the ability to replicate. Let's look at how science finally cracked this impossible code.
For centuries, humans were completely stuck on this. Up until about 200 years ago, most brilliant scientists firmly believed that organic, living things possess this magical life force, or animal electricity, that simply didn't exist in inorganic things like rocks. But that grand illusion was shattered in 1828. A German chemist named Friedrich Wöhler accidentally synthesized an organic compound from completely inorganic materials.
This built right upon the groundbreaking work of Antoine Lavoisier, who proved that living things and non-living things actually operate on the exact same chemical principles. Life, it turned out, was simply a highly complex chemical process. The boundary between the living and the dead wasn't magic at all. It was just chemistry. But if life is just chemistry, where did all these incredibly complex ingredients come from?
Part 1. Ingredients from the void, the panspermia theory.
This theory presents a seriously mind-bending twist. The complex building blocks of life might not have originated on Earth at all, but out in the freezing vacuum of space. Think about the number 20. There are about 20 amino acids essential for all life on Earth. And in 1969, scientists made a jaw-dropping discovery inside the Murchison meteorite that crashed right into Australia. They found over 20 amino acids hiding inside that space rock. The building blocks for life were literally falling from the sky.
Using modern spectroscopy, scientists looked deep into distant gas clouds, like Sagittarius B2, which sits 25,000 light-years away from us. Out there, they found complex sugars and molecules showing chirality, which is a specific structural shape that acts as a basic signature for life. As scientist James Lovelock brilliantly put it, the universe is a massive warehouse. It's a cosmic chemical factory, fully stocked with the exact spare parts required for life.
Part 2. The spark of life, primordial soup.
So, the cosmic ingredients were delivered, but they were just dead chemicals pooling in warm ponds on a totally barren planet. They desperately needed a spark. Could violent weather actually be that spark? To find out, scientists Stanley Miller and Harold Urey set up this really famous experiment back in 1953. They took a glass container, filled it with the exact inorganic gases present on early Earth, things like ammonia and methane, added water vapor, and then continuously shocked it with electricity to simulate ancient violent lightning storms.
After just a few weeks, they discovered something that absolutely shook the scientific community: that artificial lightning spontaneously generated amino acids and carbon compounds. It proved definitively that under the right conditions, the building blocks of life can simply self-assemble right out of thin air and dead gas.
But let's be real. Loose amino acids aren't a living being. They needed to link up and replicate. Here, scientists looked to the RNA world hypothesis and the properties of simple clay. Electrically charged clay surfaces essentially acted like a microscopic scaffold, naturally binding these primary organic molecules together. Slowly, these concentrated molecules formed long chains, eventually becoming self-replicating RNA, which then evolved to create stable proteins and ultimately DNA.
Now we face our next major hurdle, the boundary. How did these loose RNA chains separate themselves from that chaotic, wild environment? Well, think of a simple household soap molecule. It has a side that loves water and a side that hates it. which is exactly why it forms bubbles that trap dirt. Fatty acids act the exact same way. In the ancient oceans, they naturally formed spherical lipid bubbles, and eventually a piece of RNA got trapped inside one of these bubbles, creating the very first primitive protocell.
Okay, so now we have an isolated bubble of genetic material. But a machine still needs power to run. This poses our final, most critical question. How did this incredibly fragile little protocell find the energy to replicate and survive on such a harsh, violent planet? It needed a metabolism. The answer wasn't found in the warm, sunlit ponds on the surface. No, it was found at the absolute bottom of the ocean, in pitch-black darkness, crushing pressure, and searing heat.
Scientists believe Luca was born down here, right near hydrothermal vents. These massive geological engines spewed boiling, mineral-rich water from deep beneath the Earth's crust. Our primitive protocells thrived here by pulling in minerals and nutrients from the scalding water, using the extreme heat to power their chemical reactions, and then releasing the waste back into the sea. This right here was the very dawn of metabolism.
Part 3. The accidental merger, a 2-billion-year-old mistake.
For over 1 billion years, things basically stayed stuck at the single-cell level. The oceans were a brutal, microscopic battleground, where organisms fiercely competed for limited resources. Survival meant you either ate your neighbor or you cooperated. Then, in the 1960s, biologist Lynn Margulis discovered a spectacular mistake. 2 distinct types of single-celled organisms, an archaea and a bacteria, lived close together. One day, the archaea swallowed the bacteria whole, but instead of digesting it, the archaea let the bacteria live inside it. The two actually merged into a single, highly efficient working organism.
That swallowed bacteria adapted and became what we now call mitochondria. This created a brand new type of cell, a eukaryote. This accidental biological merger was the greatest power-up in history. The mitochondria provided the host cell with 200,000 times more energy than a standard bacterial genome could ever produce. That massive explosion of energy allowed cells to become vastly more complex, eventually leading to all multicellular life, every plant, every animal, and yes, you.
Let's take a step back and just look at the astronomical scale of this timeline. It took hundreds of millions of years just for the primordial soup to yield a single, living microbe like Luca. Then, it took nearly 2 billion more years for 2 cells to accidentally merge. It is an unbelievable chain of perfect chemical coincidences, extreme environments, and massive stretches of time all flawlessly aligning.
When you trace this timeline all the way back, past the lightning, past the ocean vents, and out into the freezing vacuum of space, you realize something profoundly moving. The building blocks required for our very existence were forged in the cosmos. You and I, quite literally, are made of stardust, assembled by sheer cosmic chance.
The origin of life is a beautiful testament to the strange, brilliant, and incredibly fragile mechanics of our universe. But it leaves you wondering, if all of this happened here, what else is hiding in the dark? Subscribe to Hidden Reality for more incredible true stories and hidden realities from around the world.